I think it's me. I think it's me.
Mr. Ezekiel, yeah, Mr. Ezekiel. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can start, Mr. Ezekiel. Okay, let them join if they want. Yeah,
Okay, it's okay. So let me share my screen. I'll share
yeah,
my
please,
screen.
yeah, please, yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. I hope you are seeing my screen now.
Yes. I can see. We can see your screen. Yes, please.
Okay. Thank you. So I'm going to present on Unit 4, which is malicious software. Which is malicious software. Okay. So I'm just going to start now. So what is a malicious software? A malicious software is any program or a file that is intentionally harmful to a computer, network, or a server. And these malicious programs steal or encrypt, and also they can delete sensitive data or alter or hijack core computing functions and monitor end users' computer activity. So that's the definition of a malicious software. So it's there to intentionally harmful a computer. So it's there maybe to encrypt your data, and maybe they ask for a ransom, and after paying they can actually unlock your data. Also they can delete the sensitive data even without the acknowledgement of the user. So let's talk about the types of malware. There's the ransomware, there's the Trojan horse, remote access, worm, keyloggers, viruses, adware, rootkit, as well as spyware. So there's this one which we call the logic bomb. Let's talk about the logic bomb. A logic bomb is a program that performs a malicious action as a result of a certain logic condition. So it's not a virus or a bomb which is just going to explode immediately. It's something which is going to be embedded in your code, or something which is going to be injected in your machine and wait for a certain condition to happen. Once that condition happens, then that's when you see its attack. That's when it starts to propagate in your machine, maybe starting to actually do the damage that it was intended for. That's what we call the logic bomb. So there's this example that I've actually put in my slide, where in 1982 the CIA learned that Moscow was going to steal software for use in handling a new gas pipeline to Western Europe. So what they've done, they've actually inserted code that would set pump speeds and valve pressures that were far too high. But this code was embedded in the control system. So it was just waiting for a certain condition and then triggered those uh, and then start to change the settings on the pump speed as well as valve pressures, which resulted in the largest non-nuclear explosion ever seen from space. So just like that, that's how a logic bomb actually operates. Let's talk about the viruses, worms, trojans, and rootkits. So malware can be classified into several categories depending on propagation and its consummate. So on the propagation, if you look at the virus, normally it's human assisted propagation mostly. Like open email attachment, maybe you do not know that this email have got a virus attached to it. You can open it, and then you've actually managed to help that virus to get into your machine. Maybe you've actually spread it from one device to another through that. Then if it is a worm, there's automatic propagation without human assistance. So standalone piece of code. Then on the consumer end, you can look at the rootkit, modifies operating system to hide its existence. I'm going to look at this later on, one by one. So a rootkit uh, is just a malware which will be actually able to manipulate the operating system so that it can not identify some of the malwares. Also there's the Trojan, which is mostly the Trojan horse, provides reliable functionality but hides malicious operation. On the Trojan horse, we are saying there's something that you want that the software does or that the application does, but you do not see that at the back there's something which can harmful which can harm your computer. So various types of payloads ranging from annoyance to crime. So let's talk of computer worms. So a computer worm is a malware program that spreads copies of itself without the need to inject itself in other programs, and usually without human interaction. So what it needs just to get into your maybe network system or into a computer, then it starts to move from one another to one device to another, and then replicate itself. That's what a computer worm does. So thus computer worms are technically not computer viruses, since they don't infect the program, infect other programs, but some people nevertheless confuse the terms, since both spread by self-replication. So in most cases, a computer worm will carry a malicious payload, such as deleting files or installing a backdoor where someone can actually steal information on the other end that you do not see, maybe intentionally stored or not. So on the worm development, mostly we identify the vulnerability which is still unpatched, and then we write a code for exploit such vulnerabilities. Then generation of target list, then we generate the target of list like from this device to this device or this network system. And then also random host on the internet, we can actually identify the random host depending on the vulnerability, or host on LAN or divide and conquer. And then installation and execution of payloads, then querying or reporting if a host is infected or not. And then initial deployment on botnet. We are going to talk about a botnet, what a botnet and how does it work. So a worm template is like we generate a target list. After generating a target list for each host on target list, check if it is infected, check if it is vulnerable or infect, or and then you infect, and then you recur the process. So distributed graph search algorithms can be used, maybe forward edges, where we'll be actually looking for the infected, or for those not for the infected, but you are looking for the nodes which are not yet infected in the network system. And then there is the back edges, where already infected or not vulnerable are actually acknowledged. So it's just like we've got a network system which you have some nodes there. So when the worm arrived at a certain node, it can actually notify if it is infected or not, or if it is possible to infect that node. So the worms propagate by finding and infecting vulnerable hosts. They need a way to tell if a host is vulnerable, and they need a way to tell if a host is already infected. That's why I was talking about the forward edges and back edges algorithms that can be used. So here it's just the initial infection on this system, and then it will start to propagate to other hosts. So it will be scanned to see if a node or a device is actually vulnerable or not. If it is vulnerable, then it will attack that node, and then it will proceed just like that to other nodes. That's how a worm works. So this was just the propagation theory, which shows like here the spread the spread of a worm, the spread of a worm. So on this graph, if you look at this graph here, we've got the slow rate, or it's just starting there but with a slow rate, and then here it's just a peak which is fast spread phase, and then which is then here the curve started to flatten at the end there. Then let's talk about the rootkits, which is also a malware, a special type of a malware. So a rootkit modifies the operating system to hide its existence. So what we are saying, this rootkit, what is just going to do, it is going to be stored maybe along the operating system files, so that it can hide the malwares it can hide other malwares, so that the operating system cannot actually be able to detect that. So it will be actually incorporated as part of the operating system. That's what a rootkit does. So e.g. it modifies file system or exploration utilities hard to detect using software that relies on the OS itself. So there is the rootkit revealer, which was just made by Systenos, which is a subsidiary of Microsoft. So what it does, two scans of file system. What does it? It scans the file system, high level scan using the Windows API, also the raw scan using disk access method. Discrepancy reveals presence of rootkit could be defeated by rootkit that intercepts and modifies results of raw scan operation. So this rootkit revealer is just like a countermeasure to rootkits, just like a countermeasure, so that we'll be able to detect the malware which are being tried to be protected by these rootkits. So what you need maybe is to start to actually able to identify the rootkit itself. So that's the purpose of this rootkit revealer. Then let's talk about this Trojan horse, which is also the special type of a malware. So it's a malware program that appears to perform some useful tasks, but which also does something with the negative consequences, e.g. launches a keylogger. So Trojan horse can be installed as part of the payload of other malware, but are often installed by a user or administrator, either deliberately or accidentally. So what we are saying is just a software which you can admire to use, or which offers some useful solutions to you, but you don't know that there's the hidden agenda within it. So like here we've got the useful, something which is useful, but inside which is there are some invisible actions, which is something malicious which will happen there. So that's how, or that's what a Trojan horse is. Then these were they are no longer current trends, but by April 2009, Trojan horses were actually, or was having the largest infection potential. Often exploit browser vulnerabilities, typically used to download other malware in multi-stage attacks. So maybe you download the Trojan horse and then it will start to download other malwares to your system. Then let's talk about the spyware. It's just like a spy. I think you know what a spy does. So a spyware software payload here that we have, and then what does it do? A spyware engine infects a user's computer. After infecting your computer, what it does, spyware collects keystrokes, maybe what you be doing there, every click or whatever, and then it also maybe takes your passwords and it also do some screen captures, and what it does there, it actually delivers that or that data to spyware data collection agent, and then that agent can do anything with that data. That's how a spyware works. That's how a spyware works. So it's just another special type of a malicious software, which is a malware. So now let's talk about the malware zombies. The zombies. So a malware can turn a computer into a zombie. What we call a zombie, which is a machine that is controlled externally to perform malicious attacks, usually as a part of a botnet. So a botnet is just a network of infected computers or devices or machines. So you have a network of infected machines, and these machines are being used as zombies to attack the victim. The victim. That's how zombies actually works. So how to make money of a botnet? Maybe want to make money of a botnet. Normally it's render, pay me money, and I will let you use my botnet. Since remember we said that a botnet is just a network of computers which are infected. Then there is the DDoS extortion, denial of service, pay me or I take your legitimate business off web. And then bulk traffic selling, maybe through a SEO, also theft of monetizable data, as well as the data ransom, where you'll be asked to pay some fee when your data is encrypted. Once you pay that fee, your data will be decrypted. So here it's an example of bot nodes. There's the command and control, zombie host. Then let's talk about the spam emails. The spam emails. So spam emails are unsolicited. So normally on spam emails, there's what we call a spamware, which should be used to maybe to distribute bulk emails, which are actually infectious to the end user. So spam emails are unsolicited and often irrelevant or inappropriate messages sent in bulk to a large number of recipients. So the goal of spamware is to distribute these spam emails typically for advertising, maybe phishing, or other malicious purposes. So this they do mostly happens in business areas, where maybe employees can be actually send spam emails. Maybe if they didn't actually put extra effort to read the email very well and to see if it is actually from the actual owner of the email, maybe you end up clicking the links in that email and then you get attacked. Then there is also the issue of backdoors, which refers to a secret or hidden method of accessing a computer system, software, or a network which bypass normal authentication and security mechanisms. Backdoors are typically created intentionally, but can also be the result of security vulnerabilities or weaknesses in a system. So a backdoor, just think of it as something which actually being inserted maybe by a developer intentionally or unintentionally. So you as the owner of the system, you do not know about that backdoor, but someone can actually get into your system without being authorized by your authorization program there, and then be able to access some of the data which is confidential, or maybe even if it is not confidential but it's unauthorized access. So let's talk about the countermeasures to a malware. The countermeasures to a malware, there's this concept of using of signatures. So signature based detection is a fundamental and widely used malware countermeasure in cyber security. It involves identifying and blocking non-malware based on their unique signatures or patterns. So how do we know their fingerprints or their signatures? So there is this part of signature creation. Security experts and antivirus vendors analyze malware symbols to create digital signatures, which are unique patterns or codes that identify specific malware strains. So these signatures often include characteristics like file hashes, sequences of code, or behavior patterns. So these signatures scan, compare the analyzed object with a database of signatures. So what we do, there will be a maintained database of these signatures. So we compare the scanned object with those with those in the database. So if there is a match, then we can actually highlight that this program have got a malware which is attacking you. So a signature is a virus fingerprint, e.g. a string with a sequence of instructions specific for each virus, or a different from a digital signature. So a file is infected if there is a signature inside its code. So also fast pattern matching techniques to search for signatures can be actually used. All the signatures together create the malware database that usually is proprietary. So the signature database with the common malware enumeration aims to provide unique common identifiers to new virus threats. Also the digital immune system, which is a proactive way which will actually continuously create automatically new signatures so that you can actually avoid these new viruses. Then there is the shield versus on a demand. type of countermeasure. So if it is shield, it's just like a real-time protection, which refers to continuous and automatic monitoring of a computer system or network to identify and block security threats as they occur. This proactive approach aims to prevent threats in real time as soon as they are detected. But if it is on-demand protection, it's just like when you try to scan your computer with the antivirus. So it's like manually scanning or involves scanning the files, specific files or directories at users' discretion. Users initiate scans when they choose, and the security software checks for threats based on its current threat database, just like that. So on the side of shield, they mostly their background process, remember we are saying, is something which is ongoing. It's a real-time monitoring. So mostly these are background processes, which is a service or a daemon scans each time a file is touched, that is opened, copy, maybe executed. But if it is on demand, scan on explicit user request or according to regular scheduler or schedule. Maybe you've got scheduled your antivirus to scan every week, or maybe to scan daily on a suspicious file, directory, or drive, etc. Maybe that's when on demand comes in. Then there's also the online antivirus software as well as the offline virus software. I think it's self-explanatory. On the online, mostly you have the free browser plugin. When you're actually searching through the internet, there will be a plugin on, or maybe on your browser, which you'll be actually checking on the websites that you are visiting, maybe also on the files that you are trying to download or that you are downloading. Also, there's the authentication through third-party certificates. Here there's no shielding, since you are not installing the antivirus on your system, which will be actually continuous monitoring your machine. So maybe here they are actually being monitored by the owner of the servers, something like that. So software and signature update at each scan. Poorly configurable. Scan needs internet connection. Yeah, definitely, since it's online, so scan needs internet connection. Report collected report collected by the company that offers the service. So we are saying the report maybe after a scan will be collected by the company which is offering that service. Remember, the service is not on your machine, so the report mostly is collected by that company, and then maybe they will act upon that on your system, or maybe whichever policy they will be using. Then if it is offline, maybe you pay an annual subscription, or maybe it's a monthly subscription installed on the operating system that you'll be using, and also the software distributed securely by the vendor, online, or a retailer. So a system shielding will be always there, since it will be on your system. Scheduled software and signatures updates, easily configurable, scan without internet connection. Report collected locally and may be sent to a vendor if you want to. I'm sure most of them, they'll actually ask you to allow them to send such data to them. So is at your discretion that you need to actually send them or not. Then there is this concept of quarantining files. Maybe want to quarantine. So a suspicious file can be isolated in a folder called quarantine. E.g., if the result of the heuristic analysis is positive and you are waiting for database signatures update. So maybe you have actually spotted that this file have got a potential virus in it. You can quarantine it, thus actually isolating it from all other files, or from all operating system files and other files in your machine, so that it will be no longer harmful. So if the suspicious file is not deleted but made harmless, the user can decide when to remove it or eventually restore for a false positive. Interacting with a file in quarantine, it is possible only through the antivirus program. Maybe that's the one that you can use. So the file in quarantine is harmless because it is encrypted as well. So usually the quarantine technique is proprietary and the details are kept secret. Also, there is a countermeasure of white uh, or blacklisting. White or blacklisting. I'm sure we always do that. Maybe also on our phones, where you can blacklist a person, and that person will be not able to call you. So these methods are used to determine whether an entity, such as a user application or network, is allowed, which is whitelisted, or denied, which is blacklisted, access to specific resources or actions. So let's talk about whitelisting, which is allow only approach. So whitelisting, also known as allow listing, is a security strategy where only pre-approved entities or elements are granted access to a system, network, application, or resource. Everything and everyone else is denied access by default. So we are just looking at actually evaluating maybe the users first, and then we can tell if this one got the right, or maybe we can actually blacklist that person or that application. So specific and controlled access: with whitelisting, administrators define a list of trusted entities or elements, e.g. a specific users or IP addresses, applications or devices that are permitted to interact with the sources or with the resources. Any other entity is automatically denied. Enhanced security: whitelisting provides a high level of security because it ensures that only authorized, and trusted elements can access the resource. It is effective and it is effective at preventing unauthorized access and reducing the attack surface. Then let's talk about the blacklisting. So block only approach, that's what we call the blacklisting. So blacklisting is a security strategy where a specific entities or elements are blocked or denied access to resources, where everything else is allowed by default. So maybe here we are just creating a list of known threats, maybe malicious entities or prohibited actions, and then we deny them access. So here we'll be doing deny known threats. So blacklisting is commonly used to prevent known malware, IP addresses, email addresses, or specific websites from accessing a network or a system. It's particularly effective against recognized threats. Ease of implementation: setting up a blacklist is relatively straightforward. Administrators maintain a list of known threats or undesirable entities and add new items as they are identified. I'm sure if you are a web hoster, most of these countermeasures are the ones which you've actually used there, which are used there. Especially if you try to log maybe on your portal 3 times, you find out that you'll be not able to access that website at all because they will actually blacklist your IP address. So if you try to log in or whatever, they will tell you that your IP address are actually blacklisted. For you to get back or to be whitelisted, you need maybe to contact the owner of the server so that they can remove your IP address from the blacklist. So just like that, that's how blacklist works. And then I think that's the end of my presentations. I think for now I can take some questions there, or even contributions if there are contributions which are there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ezekiel, for your presentation. So, anyone want to add your thoughts on the presentation of, you discussed about malware, right? So, if you want to give your contribution of any comments, please go ahead. Is there anything you like to add to the discussion what has been presented now? Okay, let me give my thoughts and then we can go for the next presentation. Okay, so we were discussing about different malware, right? Malware basically it's a malicious program. Basically, the intention is to create a damage to any kind of network or any organization. So we saw like a virus and worm. When you look at the virus and worm, you know that a worm can self-replicate and spread to other networks, while in the virus which cannot. because a virus needs to be sent from one computer to another by user or via software, because it needs something to be triggered for virus. So for example, you click a link, or you open a file. Such actions trigger what happens is a virus. Okay, but warm waters is that it self replicates. And you know that in 1971, okay, the first virus program called a creeper program, it has been created by Bob Thomas. So what basically it did is that it's not intention to do harm. The intention is that you are just trying to do it want to illustrate a mobile application just for replicating. But slowly from 1971, okay, people start to use these kind of techniques to create a malicious activity. And then if you look at this, some of the famous viruses you would have known about: I love you virus, SQL scammer, strucknet, cryptolocker, timba. So these are the some of the virus what we have. Okay, even though every day there are a lot of virus worm, and a lot of malwares have been produced, because day by day if you see, as I told you, we are now moving to IPv6, right? I said number of users who are connected with the internet is globally increasing very rapidly and exponentially. So we need more what is it, more IP address. That's what we into IPv6. Imagine that this many users connected to the internet. It means that also the attackers, hackers are there to make use of this opportunity where they can make some money, right? So you also study about ransomware, right? We talked about ransom WannaCry attack, right? That's one of the thing. It has caused a huge damage. When you look at this ransomware, we need to also see what is the impact of this ransomware. When you look at the impact, definitely it will temporarily or permanently, it makes a loss of sensitive or proprietary information once this attack has come. And the second thing is like disturbance, distribution to a regular, it creates a disturbance to the regular operation. For example, yeah, say like a medical, in hospital, which has been attacked by, ransomware. Ransomware basically it will encrypt your system unless until you get decryption key. You can't unlock your system. So what will happen is that there is a chance that, okay, you may temporarily lose or permanently loses. And then the other challenge is that even you are not sure, even if you pay as a ransom, and the attackers may not give you the decryption key as well. It's not 100% that you get a decryption key. So there are certain challenges if you look at this, what to say, ransomware attack. Also, there is a lot of financial losses incurred to restore system, and then also to the files what to be restored. And then also you can see the potential harm to a organization's reputation is very important. Say for example, a banking system has been compromised. Just imagine the reputation. People will scared to put their business there. Okay, right? They don't deposit any money there, because this the organization has been attacked, and then it is not good for the reputation. So the impact will be like you lose your data temporarily, permanently. Also there is a disruption in your operations, financial loss, and then reputation loss. That is one of the major thing you will be having when you go for this ransomware attack. And then you talked about what is it, backdoor, right? In terms of backdoor, you know that the attackers, they basically what they do is that executing a backdoor attack, it involves like exploiting the system. Actually, they look at the vulnerability and they try to exploit the weaknesses in the system. Once the system weaknesses are being identified, the malicious software they create or enter into the system. So that will keep them a backdoor to access the system. They take control of the system actually. So it's that when you look at ethical hacking, so they need to also find out what are the vulnerability in the system. Once the vulnerabilities have been identified, they try to exploit the vulnerability. Once they exploit the vulnerability, using that, what they do, to create backdoors to enter the system, to stay in the system, as well as to keep control of the system. So it's very important to understand what is this, the backdoor also. So it's only that now if they need to find the weaknesses and exploit them, and then keep track, and then they can further manipulate the system. Also, you would have discussed about the phishing attack, right? Phishing attack we already discussed. Like it is a, simple thing is like it's a practice of sending fraudulent emails, like, and then it appears like from a legitimate user and the repeated source. Usually they send these messages through email. For example, like, they will say that I'm in so and so country, I have been left alone, and then I have millions of money, and then if you like to receive that money, please send your details, like your first name, second name, country, passport number, banking details, everything. And then basically they what they do is that they take all the information and they say that you need to make a deposit. And then what you can do, you can get, see, these are some of the scammers. They usually do these kind of things. Usually it will be like, text messages, or you can give email messages. The idea is that it looks like a legitimate, but it is not a legitimate one. Also, for example, like you may receive a link that, Amazon, some link is there, you should activate the link. So what they basically do is that they try to take your information, which is very critical, and then they compromise system yourself, and they take your information, protein, as like they are the legitimate people. And then, the zombies I told you, right? It's a zombie, any computer or electronic device is compromised by the malware or malicious software. So basically, that you call as a zombie. Computer is controlled by attacker. Okay, it exactly what will happen is that the system will be controlled by a hacker from outside the organization. Okay, it's from a different location. What he can do is that he can completely control your system. So that will act as a zombie. And then you also talked about rootkit, right? Rootkit, it's also it's a set of malicious program that, enables administrator a level access to the computer network. So rootkit basically it goes to the, operating system, and then it's very difficult to find out this kind of attack. Okay, this sits with the, core of the memory, and then it's very difficult to track of this operating system, like Rustalk, TDSS, zero access. So, all these are the some of the, rootkit attacks. You would have been very well aware of. These are the, well known some of the rootkit access. So, I hope, you when you are studying ethical hacking, you would have studied about the white hat, black hat, and gray hat hacker, right? White hat hackers are basically your legitimate people. Basically, they do try to exploit the, weaknesses in the system. That process is well known to the organization, because the organization will do this practice to find out is there any vulnerabilities or any loopholes in the system, so that they can put some control measures. So these are done by the ethical hacker. Basically they do have a, contact with the organization. They get additional information or sometimes zero information to perform this operation. They do ethically to make sure that they just like they will scan the network, and they will find the vulnerabilities, and they provide the report in order to put mitigation for those vulnerabilities, right? But, black hat hackers are basically they are really they do this for the purpose of money, and then they try to damage the network. Also they try to take control access to the systems, and then they try to demand for the money. And then gray attackers, they are both good and bad. They will basically do this only on the circumstance basis. Okay, not every time they are bad, but they always do for in case of any causes. Also, these type of attacks are always prevalent, right, in the internet. Nowadays you can see there are a lot of what is it, attacks are going on, because the important thing is that people are now looking at what to say, how to, take control of the systems, and then make easy money. And also you would have talked about Trojan horses, right? Trojan horses may look like a legitimate program. For example, you may download an application like a gaming, any game application. You download like a game application. Along with the game application, Fibion, can others hear me? Fibion can't hear me properly. What about others?
I can hear you.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you. Thank you, yes, Mr. Jessica. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So, I was talking about Trojanos, right? Yeah, Trojanos basically I was discussing about, like it looks like a legitimate program, and then what you do, you look like you're playing a game, right? And then what you do, you download the application. Once you download the application, along with the application, you will also download the malicious software. The malicious software will be looking for your confidential information in the system, and then it will create a backdoor, and then it will be sending the information. So these are the some of the malwares. Malware is a, I told you, like umbrella term, right? Under the malware, you have lot of malicious software, where even each and every day you will find there is some kind of threat and attack is going on. So it is very important that this awareness for us is very important to keep ourselves safe and then secure when you connect with this with the internet. So that is what Mr. Ezekiel has discussed so far in terms of malware. And really I appreciate the presentation. It was really good and then informative as well. Well done, Mr. Ezekiel, for that. And then, colleague, and then please, if you have any thoughts and any points you want to add to that, please you can feel free to add. Anyone would like to add any important point? You can please add. Anything? Anyone? Or any thoughts?
No thoughts. It was a good presentation.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you, Mr. David. Yeah. Also, you were talking about spyware, right? Also, the spyware, I just want to add, like spyware, that is also like a program, right? It is designed to track all the user activities, from which application you used, which website you visit. Adware, like it's a program like pop up various advertisement offer. So basically, when you look at the internet, right, you will get relevant advert on the site. You have observed that, right? When you check for like a hotel booking in Namibia, for example, when you keep checking like that, automatically nowadays the AI being used, it keep track of your search, and then it will be keep on populating the ad. For example, if you're searching for booking any booking in Namibia, you will find all the ads at your right and left hand corner will be popping up, like based on your search what you basically do. So Google keeps track of each and everything, and then basically they this type of ad will auto populate. It's not like done by a person. Based on if you search, the ads been populated automatically. So some of the what to say, nowadays it's very much automated. And then now you will see that mostly you use chat gpt, right? So you will also find, okay, from one source you can search all the content from the internet. So when you use ChatGPT, it goes around and finds the relevant content, and then it gives us a comprehensive, what is that? A just summary of what you are looking for. So those are some of the things you will find very interesting. But I'm happy that Mr. Ezekiel has done a fair job in presenting this. And then, who is the next presenter? Mr.
Ye-
Talenta? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Yeah,
Okay.
you can go ahead. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see your screen. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll be presenting on Unit 2, user authentication and database security. So just an overview of what this presentation will be about. First, we have electronic user authentication principles, password-based authentication, token-based authentication, biometric, remote user, security issues for user authentication, practical applications for iris biometric systems, and then a case study for security problems for ATM systems. So the objectives are to discuss the four general means of authenticating users' identity, explain the mechanisms by which hash passwords used for user authentication and understanding the use of Bloom filters in password management, and also presenting an overview of token-based user authentication, and then lastly discussing issues involved and the approaches for remote user authentication. So user authentication, fundamental security is a fundamental security building block, pretty much the basis of access control and user accountability. So in most computer security contexts, user authentication is the fundamental building block and first line of defense. User authentication is the basis of most types of access control and for user accountability. RFC 2022-828 defines user authentication as the process of verifying an identity claimed by a user or for a system entity. And authentication process consists of two steps. Identification step, presenting an identifier to the security system. So identifiers should be assigned carefully because authentication identifiers are the basis for other security services such as access services. And then there's the verification step, which is presenting or generating authentication information that collaborates the binding between the entity and the identifier. In essence, identification is the means by which a user provides a claimed identity to the system. User authentication is the means of establishing the validity of the claim. So there's a model for electronic user authentication. So these slides, some of the notes are based on NIST SP. Sorry. Yeah, so some of the notes are based on NIST SP 863.2, but the model, I think it's on 863.4 now. But basically, um, um, it defines EUA as the process of establishing confidence in user identity that are electronically presented. So users applies to registration authority and becomes a subscriber of a credential service provider. RA is a trusted entity. The CSP exchanges with the subscriber, the credential, a data structure binds an entity to a token possessed by the subscriber. And then there's a claimant, the party to be authenticated, a verifier, the party verifying, and then the verifier passes an assertion about the subscriber to the relaying party. So it's basically just a model to um, authenticate users. So as I was saying, the National Institute of Standards and Technology is a key player in establishing standards and guidelines for cybersecurity and digital identity management. So these sets of standards for digital identity guidelines not only restricted to maybe federal identity management, but still could be used anyway and actually encouraged. So it aims to enhance the identity proofing process by introducing new requirements for remote and in-person proofing. So the updated standards propose more stringent process, including the use of multiple biometric modalities and the verification of identity evidence through trusted sources. This change is intended to reduce the risk of fraudulent activities being used in digital transactions. So I think, as was mentioned earlier, a lot of this kind of um, attacks have been happening recently. And we have another Sorry, give me a second. Okay.
Alan, please proceed. Yeah.
All right. Sorry. So we have risk assessment for user authentication. So we have assurance level, the degree of certainty that a user has presented a credential that refers to his or her identity. So level one, that's little confidence in online forum, for example. Level two, some confidence, professional organization. Level three, high confidence, patent office applicants. Level four, very high confidence, employees accessing restricted or sensitive services. And then potential impact, it can be categorized as low, moderate, or impact. So risk assessment for user authentication, assurance level, impact profiles. So potential impact categories for user errors, uh, inconvenience, distress, or damage to standing or reputation. So this could be used in assessment of user authentication. And then we have password authentication, widely used for user authentication method. Widely used user authentication method. User provides name or login and password. System compares password with that's saved for specific login. Authentication ID of user logging, and the user is authorized to access the system. Determines that user's privileges is used in discretionary access control. So the frontline defense against intruders is the password system. Virtually all multi-user systems require that a user provide not only a name or identifier, but also a password. The system compares the password to previously stored passwords for that user ID maintained in a system password file. The password serves to authenticate the ID of the individual logging onto the system. In turn, the ID determines whether the user is authorized to gain access to a system. The privilege is accorded to the user and is used to determine uh, discretionary access controls. So password vulnerabilities, offline dictionary attack, specific account attack, such as a user called John, popular password attack against a wide range of IDs, password guessing against single user with previous knowledge about the user, workstation hijacking, exploiting user mistakes, exploiting multi-password use, electronic monitoring. So these are all kind of forms of these are all forms of password vulnerabilities. How someone might gain access to your password. So we can identify the following attack strategies and countermeasures. Um, Offline dictionary attack, a determined hacker may bypass access controls and access to the system password file. The attacker then compares the password hashes against hashes of commonly used passwords. Uh, Specific account attack. The attack specific account attack. The attacker targets a specific account and then submits password guesses until the correct password is discovered. And then we have popular password attack. The attacker chooses a popular password and tries against a wide range of user IDs. Um, yeah, this is very common. And then password guessing against single user. The attack attempts to gain knowledge about the account holder and system password policies and uses that knowledge to guess the password. Workstation hijacking. The attacker waits until a logged in workstation is unattended and then tries to get the password. Exploiting user mistakes. If the system assigns a password, then the user is more likely to write it down because it is difficult to remember. exploiting multi-password use when different network devices share the same or similar password for a given user. Electronic monitoring. If a password is communicated across a network to log onto a remote system, it is vulnerable for eavesdropping. So countermeasures for password vulnerability. Stop unauthorized access to password file. Countermeasures against the listed vulnerabilities include controls to prevent unauthorized access to password file, intrusion detection measures to identify a compromise, a rapid reissuance of password should the password file be compromised. Account lockout mechanisms, which locks out access to the account after a number of failed login attempts. Policies to inhibit the selection of users of common passwords. Training in and enforcement of password policies that make passwords difficult to guess. Automatically logging the workstation out after a period of inactivity. A policy that forbids the same or similar password or on particular network devices, encrypted communication links. So these are examples of countermeasures you could try to implement in order to uh, counter against password vulnerabilities. So it's also worthwhile to study and research password and password vulnerabilities, like the most common vulnerabilities or the still the most efficient ones. So the use of hashed passwords, the sought and user supplied passwords are used as input to encryption routine. If the result matches the stored value, the password is accepted. These, there are two threats to this password scheme. First, a user can gain access to a machine using a guest account or by some other means, and then run a password guessing program called a password cracker on that machine. In addition, if an opponent is able to obtain a copy of the password, a copy of the password file, then the cracker program can run on another machine at leisure. This enables the opponent to run through millions of possible passwords in reasonable time. New implementations of a pseudo-random or random number, the password and salt serve as inputs to a hashing algorithm to produce a fixed length hash code. So the procedure shown here um, is to load a password into the system. The user selects or is assigned a password. This password is combined with a fixed length salt value. So the same user password can create multiple hash values depending on which salt is used to make attacks harder. In older implementations, the salt is related to the time in the password is assigned to the user. New implementations use pseudorandom or a random number. The password salt serve as inputs to a hashing algorithm to produce a fixed length hash code. The hash algorithm is designed to be slow to execute uh, and thwart attacks. Hashed passwords. The hashed password is then stored together with a plain text copy of the salt in the password file for corresponding user ID. The hashed password method has been shown to be secure against a variety of attacks. When a user attempts to log into a system, the user provides ID and a password. The operating system uses the ID to index the password file and retrieve the plain text salt and the encrypted password. The salt and user supplied passwords are used as input to the encryption routine. If the result matches the stored value, the password is accepted. So there are two threats to this password scheme. First, a user can gain access to a machine using a guest account or by some other means and then run a password guessing program called a password cracker on that machine. In addition, if an opponent is able to obtain a copy of the password file, then a cracker program can run on another machine any time. So why a stored value? So a stored value helps prevent duplicate passwords from being visible in the password file. It also increases the difficulty of offline dictionary attacks and makes it nearly impossible to tell if a person used the password on multiple systems. So the Unix implementation, the original scheme, eight character password from 56-bit key, a 12-bit salt used to modify the DES encryption into a one-way hash function. Output translated to 11 character sequence. So the improved implementations have other stronger hash or salt variants. Many systems now use MD5. OpenBSD uses Blowfish blocker cipher-based and hash algorithms calls code bcrypt. Password cracking, dictionary attacks. So you try each password in obvious variants in large dictionary against hash in the password file. A rainbow table attack, a large dictionary of possible passwords. For each password, pre-compute tables of hash values for all sorts, not feasible if large sort values are used. So password choices or concerns, users may pick short passwords. For example, 3% where 3 characters or less are easily guessed. System can reject choices that are too short. Users may pick guessable passwords. So crackers use lists of likely passwords. For example, one study of 14,000 encrypted passwords guessed nearly one quarter of them. Um, Password file access control can block offline guessing attacks by denying access to encrypted passwords. Can also make available only to privileged users, often using a separate shadow password. Uh, Still have vulnerabilities, exploit the OS bug, accident with permissions, making it readable. Users with same password on other systems, access from unprotected backup media, sniff passwords in unprotected network traffic. So using better passwords clearly have problems with passwords. So the goal is to eliminate guessable passwords, but it's too easy for users to remember. So some of the techniques used is user education. So just educating people on these kind of problems that attacks can happen if they use guessable passwords or using computer generated passwords. Um, and that's also an option, or reactive password checking, periodic checking. So after a certain period of time, service provider can send you a reminder to try and reset your password. And proactive password checking at the time of selection. So when a user is entering their password and then just making sure that password is worth keeping and not guessable. Proactive password checking, reinforcement. We also have password cracker and then Markov model and the Bloom filter. So moving on to token-based authentication. Object user possesses to authenticate, e.g. Using a magnetic strip or a smart card. So objects that a user possesses for the purpose of user authentication are called tokens. Um, for example, smart cards have electronic memory and processors inside, e.g. for biometric ID cards. For those in memory, have electronic memory inside, For example, prepaid phone cards, and then magnetic strips on the bar back characters in front, such as bank cards. So user authentication with EID. Biometric authentication system attempts to authenticate an individual based on unique physical characteristics. These include static characteristics such as fingerprint, hand geometry, facial characteristics, and retinal and iris patterns, and dynamic characteristics such as voice print and signature. Compared to passwords and tokens, biometric authentication is both technical and complex and expensive, and have yet to mature as a standard tool for user authentication to computer systems. So the figure here gives us a visual presentation of the relative cost and accuracy of most common biometric measures. So operation of a biometric system. Um, each individual who is to be included in the database of authorized users must first be enrolled in the system. This is analogous to assigning a password to a user. For a biometric system, the user presents a name and typically some type of password or PIN to the system. At the same time, the system senses some biometric characteristics of the user, e.g., fingerprint of the right index finger. The system digitizes the input and then extracts a set of features that can be stored as a number or set of numbers representing this unique biometric characteristic. This set of numbers is referred to as the user's template. The user is now enrolled in the system, uh, for which maintains for the user a name, ID, perhaps a PIN or password, and the biometric value, depending on application. User authentication on a biometric system involves either verification or identification. Verification is similar to a user logging onto a system by using a memory card or a smart card together with a password or a PIN. For biometric verification, the user enters a PIN and also uses a biometric sensor. The system extracts the corresponding feature and compares that to the template stored for this user. If there's a match, then the system authenticates this user. For an identification system, the individual uses the biometric sensor but presents no additional information. The system then compares a presented template with set of stored templates. If there's a match, then this user is identified. Otherwise, the user is rejected. So moving on to biometric accuracy. The system generates a matching score, a number that quantifies similarity between the input and the stored template. Concerns mostly sensor noise and detection inaccuracy, problems of false match or false non-match. In any biometric scheme, some physical characteristics of the individual is mapped into a digital representation. For each individual, a user For each individual, a single digital representation or template is stored in the computer. When the user is to be authenticated, the system compares the stored template to the presented template. Given the complexity of physical characteristics, we cannot expect that there will be an exact match between two templates. Rather, the system uses an algorithm to generate a matching score, typically a single number, that quantifies the similarity between the input and the stored template. Remote user authentication. So this is authentication over a network and is more complex. Problems of eavesdropping or replay. generally generally use challenge response. User sends identity, host responds with random number. Users computes and sends back. Host compares value from user with uncomputed value. If there's a match, the user is authenticated. It protects against a number of attacks. So the simplest form of user authentication is local authentication, in which a user attempts to access a system that is locally present, such as a standalone office PC or ATM machine. The more complex case is that of a remote user authentication, which takes place over the internet or a communication link. Remote user authentication raises additional security threats such as eavesdropping, being able to capture a password, or an adversary replaying an authentication sequence that has been observed. To counter attacks to remote user authentication, systems generally rely on some form of challenge response protocol. So the user first transmits his or her identity to the remote host. The host the host stores the hash function for each register user's password. Then the response arrives. The host compares the incoming value to that it calculates. If the quantities match, the user is authenticated. So this scheme defends against several forms of attack. The host stores only a hash code of the password, which secures the password from intruders into the host system. Also, only a function of the password hash is sent, so it cannot be captured during transmission. Finally, the use of a random number as one of the arguments defends against a replay attack. Authentication security issues. As with any security service, user authentication, particularly remote authentication, is subject to a variety of attacks as presented. Client attacks are those in which an adversary attempts to achieve user authentication without access to the remote host or to the intervening communication path. The adversary attempts to act as the legitimate user. For example, in a password-based system, the adversary may attempt to guess the likely user password. Authentic Okay, host attacks. Attacker attacks the host where password or passcode are stored. So countermeasures for these are hashing, protected password in or using a protected password in databases. So we also have replay, where attackers repeat a previously captured user response. So some countermeasures against this is challenge response or one-time password. So authentication security issues, Trojan horse, replay, and eavesdropping. So practical application for Iris biometric system that was developed for use in the banking industry for authentication of debit card users. So it shows a generic version of the system which is now in use commercially in a number of locations worldwide. So there's been also increased interest in using these kind of systems because of its exceptional accuracy, and because the biometric itself can be acquired without the individual having to come into physical contact with the biometric acquisition device. Okay, that's all for my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chalan, for your good presentation. Please, any additional thoughts you have on this topic, what you presented on authentication? Is there any point you'd like to add? Please go ahead if you have any point like you had for his presentation. See, basically, what is the purpose of authentication? See, authentication, that it always enables the organization, right, to keep the network secure. They only the permit only the users or process to gain access to the protected resource. Okay, so it's very important to authenticate a user or any system or any process that is going to try to access the institutional organizational resources. So because we can't allow everyone to access. For example, if you want to access the for example, a CEO of a company, you need to get the permission, right? Unless until you take a permission or appointment, you can't meet a certain person. Similarly, when you want to see, for example, you use an email, right? You have your username password. This is basic authentication to check whether you are the authenticated user or not. Also, some people may be used for the two-factor authentication. So what basically you do, even for your Google account, what you can do, you can go for the two-factor authentication. One is like keeping username password, and then also what happens is that you can also generate a code, and then you can verify is it that you are the right user or not. So basically, what you do, authentication is it always help us to keep our network or system secure, to make sure that only the authorized person or is using that particular system. And then also this basically used to protect your like computer system, network, databases, website, or any network based applications. So it is always good to authenticate. Also, we talked about the password, right? The password, that some people use a very weak password, some use very strong, some use usually medium password. So even in order to have a good secure password, always it should be a combination of the uppercase letter, and then you can use a lowercase letter, and then also you should have a number like from 0 to 9, and then also you can use any special characters or symbols with your password. So the ideal that for example, someone may keep a password of only, what to say, one character. Okay, so what is the possibility of hacking that password? So for example, if it is the password is only one character, just imagine in what combinations we can do. You can try from A to Z, right? So it's a 26, and then you can check for numbers, right? You can put 0 to 9, first 0, 1, 2, 3, like that. You can just put numbers, and then what you can do, you can go for putting the special characters. When you do these things at one point of time, you can very easily break this particular password, right? So if it is like one character, so always it is ideal that we need to have at least minimum of 10 characters to make our password very strong. So basically, most of the web applications are now come up with an mandatory requirement that you need to satisfy the conditions to make your password more secure. Say like it will ask to check minimum one letter should be a capital letter, and then minimum one should be a small, and then it will also a number should be there, and then a special character should be there, and then it should have minimum length of 7 to 10. So this is how nowadays most of the web applications they're coming up to secure the password. Also, if you're using a banking, and then you will find that every 3 months or 6 months you will be asked to change the password, right? To in order to make sure that you have updated the updated policy. Also, what you do, you update your password. So those are some of the authentication we basically go through to make sure that the system is accessed by the right person. And then when you go for like a biometric, you talked about biometric also, right? Always the biometric that verifies, right? It verifies user identity using the unique biological traits. What I say is bio means it like biological traits we need to verify. For example, like some may have a fingerprint, also some may have that voice recognition, retina, and then also facial features. So basically, these are some of the things. Mostly, we use our fingerprint, right? Whenever you go for any kind of biometric authentication, what you do basically, once you register with the registered, fingerprints, and then what happens? It will be stored in the server, and then what you basically do is that once you try to authenticate, it verifies matches both the patterns. If the both patterns matching, it will give an access, right? So basically, this biometric, it is using the unique biological traits to verify a user is authenticated user or not. And then also you talked about hashing, right? Hash is very important because there are, you should know the difference between encryption and hashing. So basically, when you look at the encryption, it's also a reversible process. But hashing is not. Okay, for example, when you go for encryption, you have encryption and decryption. Encryption, what you do use a encryption algorithm. I stated like you may have a symmetric encryption, also you may have a asymmetric encryption, right? Say for example, symmetric encryption, the well-known algorithms are DS algorithm, AES algorithm. Okay, those are some of the well-known symmetric encryption algorithm. But when you go for like public key encryption algorithm, that is asymmetric, you'll be, very well known algorithms. RSA, Rivas, Samir, and Adirman is the algorithm that is basically a public key encryption algorithm. So what will happen here is that very simple. Hashing is a way what we know it is more secure in comparison to encryption because it checks for the integrity of the message. For example, when you're going to send a message, you perform hashing. Hashing is nothing but you convert a variable length message into a fixed length message. So what you need to do when you send a message, you perform hashing and you get a fixed length value. And then the receiver, what you need to do, he again need to recompute, and then you need to find the hash value. If the both hash values are same, it means that you have integrity. See, yeah, I'm talking about integrity, right? When you read about the security, you need to focus on three important things like CIA: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. This CIA triad is the one, the core for networking and security. So what you need to do is that we need to always focus on these things, like a CIA, right? So when you go for like hashing, what happens is it checks for the integrity of data. It means that a sender, when he's sending a message, what it performs the hashing, and then the hash, for example, the hash secure hash algorithm, SHA, they usually say SHA, SHA algorithm, right? It is like a SHA-1, SHA-224, like a SHA-256. Also, you have SHA-384. You also have SHA-5112. Okay, so basically, you have to increase this kind of hash, like you was talking about salting also, right? So basically, salting is used in hashing, right? So it's very important that you need to have this uh, hashing is very important. It's more secure than the encryption. But also encryption is basically you convert a plain text to the ciphertext, and then what you do, you will send this message as ciphertext through the network. Even an attacker who looks at the ciphertext, he may not understand what is that message. So basically, and then during the decryption part, they apply for the reverse encryption, and then they decrypt the message and they can look at the plain text. So that's the basic difference between what to say encryption, and then also you know as a hashing. So basic also, I hope you know what is Kerberos authentication, right? Kerberos authentication is also like, it's a computer network authentication protocol. It basically works it tickets to allow the node communicating over the non-secure network to prove their identity, or another is a secure manner. For example, see, Kerberos is also one of the a symmetric key cryptography, which requires trusted party authentication. It verifies when two parties are communicating, a sender and receiver. It verifies the user is legitimate person or not using a trusted third party. So you authenticate and then you start communicating. So those are some of the things, like we have in terms of authentication. So you see, when you go through these things, authentication mechanism, it is always good that we need to understand why we need to go for authentication, what we are trying to achieve using this authentication. When you look at this authentication, you will always look at you need to say that like whether the person is legitimate or not, because as I told you before, during the transit of data in the network, the data is not secure, right? This data can be either altered, it may be deleted, or it may be modified. There is more possibility of anything may happen during the transit. So we are using this mechanism, encryption and then hashing, to make sure that we achieve the integrity. Also, we verify the data has been received with the right person or not. So that's what in summary we look at as like a authentication. Also, you talked about a brute force attack, right? You was talking about brute force attack. You know what is brute force attack, right? The attacker tries to crack a password using every possible combination. For example, I told you, right, an example, if the character password is like a single character, the attacker, what he can do, he can try all possible ways that he can just try to enter the value and check. Okay, and then some point of time I told you, if it is a single character, it's very easy to break it. First the attacker will put 1, then he put 2, then he put 3, like he keeps trying until 0 to 9 at one, for numbers. Characters he put A to Z, and then special character you can put any special character. When you put everything, if it is single character password, you can easily break, right? That you call as a brute force attack. Dictionary attack is nothing but, you also talk about dictionary attack, right? Dictionary attack tries to list the known commonly used passwords. So what will happen? A dictionary, you know what you do. You have dictionary means it's a collection of every information, right? Similarly, the attackers will have a list of passwords. That means people may use a frequent password like, 6 zeros, 4 zeros, and then even, what is that? Um, some basic, for example, they keep just password as 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. So those are some of the basic passwords people often use, and then attacker will try to use those passwords to break into the system. So those are some of the things, like, in terms of dictionary attack. Dictionary attack, simply you can try understand, is that attacker tries to know list of known password or commonly used password. They try to exploit that. So I told you what is hashing, and then also like password hashing, and then I also discussed about what is that. Okay, so this is what, in terms of authentication. Thank you. What is that, Mr. Talon, for your good presentation. It was very informative. Please, anyone have any other additional points to discuss on the topic what you presented? Please go ahead. You can share your thoughts. I'm not asking to give feedback whether it's done good or bad. I'm just asking if you like to add 1 or 2 examples, thoughts on that. Please go ahead. Any additional point you like to bring to, everyone? Please go ahead. No thoughts, no additional points, right? Okay. Okay, so it is fine. Okay, so okay, in today's, though, two presenters, Mr. Ezekiel and Talent, has done a good job in terms of presenting. And then I just want to open up for any thoughts you have on these two topics. I just want to give 5 minutes. You can talk, and then I go to the next section. No thoughts, no question, nothing. Okay, so okay, let me ask something, like, did you guys manage to go through the, what is that, term paper? Have you started to work on the term paper? Please let me know.
Not
Have
yet.
you started to work on the term paper?
Not yet.
Not yet. So you said we should be completing this by next month, right? It should be by when we supposed to submit this term paper? Any, do you know any deadline for other modules?
Not that I'm aware of. Ezekiel, do you have any idea?
I think Tinashe can check and share on the WhatsApp group.
Right.
Yeah, that will be fine. Please check that one. Okay, start working on the term paper as we discussed. Okay, so at least we'll try to put in some conference. Okay, don't, please don't plagiarize that. Okay, don't plagiarize, because it's like article, right? It's good to not to plagiarize. You can write in your own word, you do Harvard referencing, and then you can do also insight citing also, you can do that. Please don't try to copy and paste. It is good to refer some papers. If you need any papers to download, let share with me also. I'll try to download for you. in case if you need to refer that particular paper. So that you need, I told you, even it's a short paper, it is good, but in the requirement they put 10 pages, right? Double column. Okay, so it means that at least if you are critically reviewing a paper, you need to have title, you need to have an abstract, and then you need to have like introduction, and then if you are doing the second part will be literature review, and then third part should be like a critical review what you are doing, or if you're proposing some new technique, you can put as a proposed methodology, and then you can go for the findings and discussion, and then conclusion at the end. The last one should be like in terms of referencing, you should list everything. So please start working on that, because it will take yes, Mr. Talent.
Yeah, just a question on the paper. Is it possible, or was it mentioned that we could do it in pairs or in
Yeah,
groups?
in group.
Yeah, maybe like
Yeah, you can do
two.
it in a group,
Yeah.
but the weightage should be good. If you able to do in a see, for example, the work should be very good. If you are doing as a two, don't do it in a single manner. You can even combine and then do it as a group, but it should be in a very good shape. Okay, because they will try to evaluate as an individual contributor what you have done in this thing. It is a good idea to work together. Yes, Mr. Dennis.
Thank you. Maybe maybe after we work on our papers, maybe we can just give you some feedback so that maybe you might help us to actually make the paper look better. As we work on
Yeah,
our
yeah,
ETC,
yeah,
maybe we could
definitely.
just share with you the
No,
topics in the abstract.
yeah, yeah, please do that one. Yeah, you should do that one. Yeah, select a topic. Okay, so see, I'll be working with you on the paper. Don't worry. Okay, I'll guide you and give the corrections, and then I'll suggest some journal or a conference where we can get published. I will help in that. Not an issue.
I thank you, Doc.
Yeah, it will be good for us. We need to publish that. It will also add in the CV. Yeah. Yeah. Any other thoughts you have? Anything? Please, if you have not started, if you like to have a team, please two can combine, not more than two, and then you can start working on the paper, or at least a technique you can propose, or an algorithm you can propose, or you can critically review a paper, or you can do a comprehensive, literature review on certain, like for example, someone is working on blockchain security. Okay, you can say what are the, or you can also compare the frameworks. Is there any two or three framework you can combine, and then you can see like what are the weaknesses, what are the strengths, and what are the limitations in those framework, and then you can say how we can overcome that. So even you can work on those areas. So I know it's very difficult to implement and get the output, but at least you can start proposing. If you propose, that can go in a conference. That is not a big deal, I think so. Yeah. Any other suggestions you have? Okay, in terms of no suggestion, I think we can close today's lesson, and then we can meet in the next class. Is it fine with everyone?
I fine. Thank you, Doc.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank
Yeah, thank
thank
you.
you.
We'll meet, yeah, next
You
lesson. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah.